Time now for a Global Grid. Today we are focusing on Viktor Orban's visit to Israel, the Hungarian president spending his second day in the country after meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday. For more, we can bring in our international affairs editor Armin Georgian. Good morning, Armin.
Good morning, Delano.
Now, the Hungarian Prime Minister has condemned anti-Semitism, but he's also been accusing of speaking with anti-Semitic undertones in the past. So it's surprising that he's in Israel at all.
Well, yes and no. I mean, he's got a very strong relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. They've known each other for more than a decade. This is Orban's first official visit to Israel as Prime Minister, but he's been before at least twice in a private capacity. Netanyahu made his first official visit as Israeli Prime Minister to Hungary last July, and there's also a relationship on other levels between, for example, the two political parties, Orban's Fidesz and Netanyahu's Likud, and actually the two men have even shared contacts in terms of political strategists. So there's really a kind of a web of contacts that goes back over 10 years. Now, what you said about the anti-Semitic undertones, this is what Viktor Orban said about one of his most harsh critics, the financier George Soros, a Hungarian-born man. Orban said at an election rally, yes, that we're seeing the Stop Soros pictures, which was part of that campaign. This is what Orban said at one of those rallies. "We are fighting an enemy that is different from us, not open but hiding, not straightforward but crafty, not honest but base, not national but international, does not believe in working but speculates with money, does not have its own homeland but feels it owns the whole world." Now, to anyone who remembers those comments, it might be a bit jarring to see Viktor Orban at the Holocaust Memorial a bit later on today in Israel, Delano. But it's interesting that Netanyahu himself actually backed Orban over George Soros. And that clues us into something very important, that the divide is not so much between Jews and non-Jews, but between liberals and conservatives, and this divides Jewish communities themselves. So in the US, Orthodox Jews voted for Donald Trump, liberals voted for Hillary Clinton. In Israel, it's the same thing. The conservatives vote for Netanyahu. Of course, the liberal Israeli Jews do not. And even in Hungary, it's the same. So you have a small Orthodox Jewish community which sides with Viktor Orban. The liberal Jews in Hungary, of course, oppose him.
So there's a lot in common between Netanyahu and Viktor Orban, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're both complex, free nationalists. They're not bound by political correctness. You know, Netanyahu once said Arab voters are going to the polling stations in droves. Viktor Orban has said our duty is to protect Hungary's Christian culture. So for both of these leaders, there's a very keen sense of who the majority is and a sort of unabashed promotion of that majority. In fact, Israel has just passed a law which says that only Jews have the right to self-determination in the country. So with their rhetoric, their insistence on the majority, who the majority is, we're not going to apologize for who we are. In that sense, both of these leaders were the precursors of the Trump era. They were sort of against the grain when Obama and Merkel had influence. Now, with Trump having influence, they're sort of up, so to speak. And it's not a surprise, Delano, that there is this Trump-Netanyahu-Orban axis in international politics at the moment.
So with this visit, Orban comes out looking like a friend of the Jews. What does Netanyahu get out of all of this?
Well, he continues to have Orban as a way into the Visegrad group. That's 4 countries in Central Europe, which are out of step with Germany particularly. And Netanyahu is, of course, closer to the vision of the Visegrad group than he is to the vision of Macron and Merkel when it comes to borders, refugees, and so on. So what are the V4? It's Hungary, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Concretely, what Netanyahu gets is to undermine any joint EU decisions about Israel. I'll give you one quick example. The Hungarians, Romanians, and Czechs blocked an EU statement which had condemned the transfer of the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So you had this paradoxical situation where the EU High Representative for Foreign Policy condemned the decision, but 4 members of the EU were for it, or at least didn't oppose it. And indeed, we had some of those Central European countries actually joining a reception at the Israeli Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem the day, or just the day before that transfer of the US embassy, before the US embassy opened in Jerusalem. So that was a dissonance, a disunity in the EU on the question of Jerusalem. That's presumably exactly what Netanyahu wanted.
And he's capitalizing on it. Thank you very much, Armin Georgian.